Hello. Today I'm going to discuss about another interesting behavior pattern which is called state pattern. So when we take this state pattern, it actually addresses very specific and very interesting issue in software designing. So the pattern is state pattern. So what is the state? State is something like the values assigned to the attributes at current stage, we can say like that. Depending on the values which are assigned to the attributes at this point represent some state of that entity. For example, we can say like when we have a real world entity called student, if there is a variable called year of the student, we can say the value assigned to that variable year is the current state of the student. First year student, second year student, third year student, likewise. That value represents some state that the student entity can last. So having that idea, let's look at some features of classes and objects, so like real world entities. Usually state depends on the behavior. That's usual thing. State depends on the behavior. So for example, we can say if the student completes the first year exams, then state will be changed to the second year. After successfully completing the first year, after that behavior, state will be changed. But in certain situations, we need we need to change the behavior depending on the state. Usually state depends on the behavior. That's the usual thing, but in some cases we need to change the behavior depending on the state. For example, we can say let's say there is a class called pen, and state means the color of the pen. Then depending on the color, the line drawn using the pen will be different. So depending on the attribute or the state, the value assigned to the attribute, that attribute color, the behavior will be changed. So in certain situations that can also happen, but in general most of the cases behavior is independent of state, but depending on the behavior state will be changed. But in this case, depending on the state, behavior should be changed. So the easiest example we can say like if you have a method in a class called draw border, there drawing the border will be changed depending on the color, that the behavior of this thing will be changed. Okay, so the pattern, the design pattern, the state pattern, the structure is very similar to the pattern we discussed in previous lecture, the strategy pattern. Exactly same, but The idea is little bit different. Let's explain about that like this. So here we have abstract class called state, class, and there is abstract method called, let's say, handle. And then from this abstract class we can derive number of concrete classes. Okay. We can derive number of concrete classes like this. I derive just 2 concrete classes. Like this. Concrete class 1. This is concrete class 2, and we have the implementation of handle method here. And here also we have the implementation of handle method like this. And then depending on this, on the state, some state, the behavior of these 2 methods will be changed. And we have the context class, or the class which requests to the state class like this. So this is called context class, and there we have a method, request method, which requests the work of this class. Okay, so when we request, we make a request, then according to the request, one of these concrete classes will be instantiated and handle method will be invoked. So very similar to the strategy pattern we discussed last time. So in the strategy pattern, we know we have the context class, and in the context class we have a configure method, and in the configure method we instantiate any of the concrete classes of the abstract class, and then we invoke the method, the abstract method. We invoke that according to the implementation in the concrete classes. Here also, in this request method, according to the current request, any of these concrete classes will be instantiated and handle method will be invoked. So depending on the state, it will decide, depending on the state, which concrete class to be instantiated will be decided, and depending on that, handle method will be varied. So that's the idea of state pattern. You can see the reference materials and understand more. And the thing you have to understand is the difference between state pattern and the strategy pattern. When we have like these 2 patterns, are the structure is very similar. But the difference is in the state pattern, this pattern, each concrete class represent a different state, and according to the state, the behavior will be changed. But when you have the strategy pattern, each concrete class is a different behavior. So we use it for algorithm families, algorithm designing, the strategy pattern, there different algorithms will be implemented in different concrete classes, so the entirely different behaviors. But here same behavior, but this depending on the state, that will be that difference is represented. So that's the idea of state pattern. So you have to understand that very clearly, the difference between state pattern and the strategy pattern. So after this pattern, I am finishing off the discussion about design patterns. So far we have discussed about three behavioral patterns, three structural patterns, and three creational patterns. And there are many more patterns in each of these categories. You can refer the reading materials and have more idea about that. So these are some kind of basic and important patterns, we can say. So these things will be very useful when you go for interviews. This is very useful piece of knowledge for you. You can show that you know about design patterns. That will be some added advantage in your CV and your interview. Okay, so I finish off our lectures for this course now. Take a look at your reading materials and try to understand about these design patterns very well. Thank you.